Hey, thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Business of Fun podcast. This is the end of July now, 2020. Finally feeling like I'm got a handle on this thing, getting the podcast back running, being able to talk to people a little more regularly, understanding what everybody's dealing with. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for following me on the Twitter and the LinkedIn and all these things. Hopefully everybody's doing all right. Let me know. Send me an email, dave@davewakeman.com. Let me know how you're doing. Having a chance to have some conversations this month with Martin Hay, Nikki Purcell, Pierre Etter. All of these conversations been really good for me. Hopefully you found something valuable there. Let me know. Again, email me, dave@davewakeman.com. I emailed somebody who listens and I connected with at the INTIX in New York this year. I was like, hey, how are you doing? And the woman was like, I can't believe you emailed me to check in on me. I was like, it's in the bylaws that if you listen to the podcast, I will check in on you during a global pandemic. So, let me know how you're doing. dave@davewakeman.com. Make sure you check out my friends at Booking Protect. Some really great content going on there. Stuff around reinvention, rebuilding the relationships, making sure that you're providing great customer service now during the pandemic. We've been talking about Booking Protect for years on the podcast. Right now is a really great time to consider offering people refund protection. No better people than working with Simon and Kat and Kath and Abby and Sophie and all the people at Booking Protect. So check them out, www.bookingprotect.com. Check out the blog, check out the information on refund protection. It's super, super valuable idea. Also, I put content there all the time too. So, if you miss it somewhere else, you can get it there. I try to be everywhere. Make sure you check out the We Will Recover platform. This is something great done by my friends from Activity Stream, bringing together about 25 people or more organizations from around the globe. INTIX is involved. Andrew and Carol at the Ticketing Professionals Conference in Birmingham are involved. Made Media, I believe. Booking Protect. I'm even there. So it's a great thing. Check it out. It's wewillrecover.live. There's tons of content, classes. Frederick Awad from State 22 and we did a revenue masterclass. It's a really great source of stuff. Actually, when I get to recording this introduction and posting this podcast, I'm going to lay out a whole bunch of things about what to do so we can help people get back on their feet, get people back in their building, hopefully making some money again, welcoming customers and fans back to their buildings, all the good stuff. Which leads me into the Talking Tickets newsletter. If you do not have not signed up for it already, if you do not get it on Fridays, what are you waiting for? If you're listening to my cranky voice right now, you should. You can get the sign up for it at davewakeman.com. There is a newsletter link on the homepage that will take you to the sign up for the Talking Tickets newsletter and another one I do on strategy on Sundays. For the last week or so, I have been running a survey in the Talking Tickets newsletter about and on social media about where your head is, how you like to engage with stuff, what you're thinking about, ways that we can help discover solutions to all the challenges we're figuring out. So I'm going to create a blog post around the July podcast and all the episodes that I've done with all these great people who've spent time with me the past month. I'm going to include a link there because to try to tell you what the link is right now, you'd be like, I hate you. I'm not going to fill it out. So I'll make it easy for you. Look for it on social media. Look for it in the show notes. I'll put it there. Okay? My guest today, so sign up for the Talking Tickets newsletter. Don't skip it. My guest today is a guy called Matt Wolff from Ticket Time Machine. Matt is a really good guy. He has really used the pandemic as a time to connect with people, to help people, to be there for the industry. He's as excited about being a part of the industry as anybody I've met in a long time. We had a really great conversation. I wanted to have Matt on because, first he said, can your assistant get me on the podcast? And I said, oh, absolutely. But you'll have to supply my assistant with beer and meat for grilling, so I had a package show up on my doorstep full of beer and meat. I'm joking. No, really I wanted to have Matt on because I think Matt brings, his enthusiasm is very, very It's infectious, and he really is, pushing really hard to be helpful and valuable to the industry. And so I wanted to have him on to talk about some of the stuff that he's working on and some of his vantage point coming from a different part of the industry into a part of the industry where he was on the printing side of the tickets, and coming onto a part of the industry where he is now involved with like the experience and memorabilia. So we talk about marketing, we talk about the experience involved in going to a live event, we talk about overcoming the pandemic, we talk about getting involved in the industry, we talked about reinventing your business, reinventing yourself. We joked about a bunch of stuff. It's great. Matt is a really nice guy. Really, I've had a chance to get to know him over the past couple months. It's been a real pleasure for me to get to know him. He texts me with like all kinds of barbecue things he's doing, or we make fun of names of beers. He is a sour guy, which I don't completely get. I prefer bourbon and IPAs myself, but it's been getting to know him over the course of the pandemic. Has been one of the nice things in a period of time that has probably been not so nice for everybody. So I hope you enjoy this conversation I had with Matt Wolff on the Business of Fun podcast. I want to welcome Matt Wolff from Ticket Time Machine to the Business of Fun. Matt, what is going on, my man?
Not too much. Great to be here, Dave. Thanks.
I know it's great to be here. This podcast is a phenomenon, my man. I'm kidding, of course. I'm joking. Thank you for doing this today. I'm excited to have you on. I think we'll be able to crack some jokes. We'll be able to make a little light of things. I think it's going to be at least mildly amusing for folks. So, but I want to start out by talking to you because you are relatively maybe a newer name for people in the industry. I've known you now since the end of last year, but you've been like throwing yourself into everything you possibly can, as much as possible. And so the question I want to ask you at the start is, are you crazy?
You got to be a little bit crazy, right?
Yeah, no, I'm joking. I say that because, we're in the middle of a pandemic. You're like, well, this is one of the worst times in the world to really kind of get started and involved in tickets, isn't it? It's nuts.
It's been interestingly enough, it's been really good for me, the timing of it. So but sure, obviously, for anyone, it's a tougher time than if things were normal.
Oh yeah, I'm only making light of it just to make a joke, because one of the things though that I do think is great about what you're doing is that you have really put yourself out there and you have tried to become worked really hard to become a part of the community, and to make sure that you are giving back and sharing ideas and just participating in a lot of stuff. And I tell people to do that all the time. And we've had several conversations offline where, you've asked me how to better get involved and like things you can do. And number one, I think that getting involved is the only way you create change. And then number two is getting involved, and being involved is just fun, right? So, those are my two things. But what made you commit yourself so fully to getting involved so quickly in the industry?
Well, part of it is to learn. For me, all of the calls that I join and the people that I talk to, even if it seems like I'm helping them, it's really helping me because I'm learning more about the industry. I've been in the industry from a different point of view, from the ticket printing side, for a long time, but now I'm getting to learn more about the operations side of ticketing and the business side of ticketing, and then also just getting to meet people like you and like all the other people I've met in the industry that have been great. And they'll be friends, and there'll be people that I think I'll be able to partner with down the road.
Yeah, I think the learning thing is extremely important because people rush in and they don't understand the business so far, and there's so many different aspects of it. I think it's surprising to folks a lot of times when they first get involved. And right now, like you mentioned, ticket operations, right? Because you have been on all the INTIX calls, and you get involved in a lot of that stuff. Why has that been the area you focused on so much?
Well, it's what's going to push my business to the forefront. With everything is going digital, we know it's going digital. And so just trying to understand more about what their thoughts are and how I can help them get to where they want to be, but also introduce this new revenue stream and new idea on how they can engage their fans more. And that, to me, that's something that's going to be important moving forward, because they can't necessarily go 100% digital right now, but everyone's trying to make that push that way. And now you have to consider the cost of everything, and then you got to consider the fans. And we've had this conversation a lot too. It's the fans are going to need to be appeased, and you're going to have to give value to the fans, because once they're able to come back, you're going to need to actually get them back.
You bring up a great point. I'm going to tuck that one in for a second and hold on to that one, because the question I want to ask, and sometimes I think people they maybe get the wrong impression about when I ask some of these questions. So I'm going to tip my hand a little bit and to tell you the joke here is that I have this Peter Drucker saying written in my notebook that says everything that everyone believes is typically wrong. And that really just means that, like, to me, if everybody is going in one direction and everybody just makes an assumption about an idea, I want to be contrary and ask if that's really true. So that should always be in the back of people's minds as they're listening to this thing. That's my point of view. So when I ask you this question, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just going to ask you the question. And that is, are you sure that everything is going to go digital? Or is that just an ambition that people have because they want to capture the data, even though, as an ongoing hypothesis of the podcast here in my work, is that maybe we have all the data in the world we can use, we just don't really know how to use it effectively.
Well, I'll agree with that part for sure. I don't think that everything will go digital 100%, but I think a huge majority of places and teams and venues and tours will go digital as much as they can. If they try and push it too much, to your point, it's going to wind up backfiring on them. And they have a lot of work to do with getting things digital with regards to Wi-Fi and how the customer experience is going to be. I think the big problem is that they're really telling you why they're doing this and how great it's going to be, which isn't true. And then, trying to spin it for them. That's going to be a big problem, I think, going forward. But I do think that things will be going digital. There will always be a printed ticket for a variety of reasons.
Well, tell me why. Why will there always be a different printed ticket?
Well, it's just there's just people who are going to want to have that printed ticket for either a souvenir or commemorative. There's people who, for just operationally, are going to need a printed ticket. Let's say you're a group of 20 people, and it's just harder to disperse, or you're a VIP or a suite or the suite holder. So there's just going to be different pockets of customers or fans that are going to need something printed, whether that's a print at home or an actual printed ticket. That might be a different story, but just purely going 100% digital on your phone I don't think is going to be feasible, and I don't think it's going to be what the market will accept.
Well, yeah, let me ask you too, and this may be outside of the scope of your expertise, because the impression that I get from talking to people that I know from around the world mainly around the country, is that the idea of a digital ticket and not having something physical, while in theory going all digital because people don't want to have contact with things after the coronavirus sounds great, I don't know if people trust it, because there's been so many situations where organizations have changed their ticketing policies, their refunds, and their exchange policies. There's been all these changes that have gone on with people having absolutely no control over them, and they don't have a physical ticket. They just have a barcode or a digital readout on their phone screen. I get the impression from talking to a lot of people, not an insubstantial amount of people at this point, that people don't trust the digital ticket because they feel like it can be manipulated and they have absolutely no control. So the flip side to that seems that maybe the paper ticket is going to be even more important, because people are going to want to have that item, that thing that they control, right? So at least I know that I have these two tickets in my hand. What's your take on that? Or maybe that's just me like talking that smack out of my tuchus.
It's I think it's interesting. I don't disagree with it. I think that there are always going to be people who don't trust the digital ticket or the print at home because of how easy it is to replicate. Or, I know Ticketmaster is doing the rotating barcodes, but now that involves having very, very good Wi-Fi issues. I was at a game that I was standing online for, missed basically the first half of a college football game because they couldn't scan the tickets. They were all digital. I had 10 on my phone. By the time I got up to the front, this older gentleman was trying to scan my tickets off my phone, and he couldn't get it. He got through like 3 of them, and then he's like, all right, you guys can all go in. So that's part of it. I don't subscribe to this safety. I think the COVID issue and contactless it's just a scapegoat for everything. There's nothing safer about me handing you a ticket for you to scan than it is me handing you my phone. You don't have to touch either. If the contact is such a big issue from the ticketing, why isn't it a big issue with the souvenirs that you buy at a merch store or the food that you get? I mean, they're going to probably be wearing gloves anyway. So I think that's just I think it's just what they're telling you to try and push their agenda. That's my opinion. But I do agree. The paper ticket for many reasons, and what you said is going to be one of them. People need to trust. It's very hard to replicate a thermal ticket that has security features, or even a hard ticket that has the security features there too. Not that people won't try, but it's much easier to replicate a digital ticket. I can do that, myself right now, create a digital ticket that looks exactly like it, and someone's not going to know until they get up to the scanner and try and use it.
Look at you with all these crazy things you're talking about: replicating digital tickets, security of paper tickets. Who knew?
Well, my brother bought a fake Dave Matthews ticket for like $100 at Madison Square Garden, and when he got up to them, they wouldn't let him in, and so he had to go buy another ticket. Fraud is always going to be there. The fraudsters are very, very smart in all aspects. I worked for LexisNexis doing anti-money laundering solutions, and the fraudsters are just getting smarter and smarter and smarter. So regardless of how they go forward, the people will try and find a way to scam.
Oh, that's the truest thing that I think any of us ever said, where there is the ability to profit from some sort of nefarious activity. There is somebody who is always going to try. That's just as true as the day is long. We see it every day in every aspect of the world, I think, right now. I think this is like the most true thing you could probably say. But I want to come back to the thing that I said I was going to hold on to for a second, which you talked about just now, about the need to get fans to come back to games when they're able to. And the working assumption that I think, again, going back to how I tip my hand, if everybody's going in one direction, I want to know if that's really true, because what everybody assumes is true is often not true. The working assumption for people has been that demand is going to be so pent up and so overwhelming that all people have to do is throw open their doors. Now, from my point of view, I've talked to, again, a bunch of people over the last few days, corporate buyers, team side people, all over the world, and they've said that as they've started to talk to their customers, talk to their clients, talk to people, they found out that maybe the will to come back is going to be a little bit less overwhelming than people think right off the top of their head. And it could be for any number of reasons, that I pointed out before. Like, we're dealing with an economic crisis. We're dealing with a psychological one. We're dealing with one that's health related. There's going to be economic issues. There's all these different issues. So you brought up the idea of winning fans back. How do you think we go forward with something like that? If you had to propose a hypothesis to me on getting people to come back, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a great question. If the biggest thing is going to be the health issue, right? Do people feel safe going to a game? If we take that out of the equation, now there's no real health issue anymore. I think and I think we might disagree on this, but I think the teams and the artists and the events that have no problem getting people historically are going to be fine. It's those that had a little bit of trouble prior to sell out games or sell tickets. They're going to have even more of a trouble now. And also, depending on the schedule of things, if everything's not going at the same date and season that it was before, now you have extra competition between sports that maybe never had competition before. My feeling about the economics of it is people are going to go. People have always spent money that they don't have because they want something, whether that's for an experience or a product. I think that, currently now I've been saving money at a very fast pace because I'm not spending any money on anything. So if you save it correctly, then you kind of put that rainy day fund away for when things do come back and sort of invest in, the events that you want to go to. I don't have an answer. I hate to try and just say I don't have an answer, but I don't have an answer of what would get me back in because I'm not the person who won't go. I'm always going to go, regardless if I'm making $30,000 a year or $300,000 a year. I'm always going to go to do the events and see the stuff I want to. So now it just depends on what kind of scale and experience I'm doing internally. Am I, going to the suite tickets and the VIP tickets, or am I just going to get standing room only? But the experience is there. I think some of the teams have gone to try and do that. I know the Dolphins try and make the game a little bit more of a, they put a concert at the beginning, just more value, just more of an event than just a game. Because if you just want to watch the game, then people just want to watch it on TV and their air conditioning, cooking and drinking whatever they want to do. And some sports are a better experience than others. For the experience of the ballpark, like a baseball game, to me is a great just social event with my friends and walking around the park and doing stuff and not necessarily having to see every minute of it. But in football, you don't do that. You sit in your seat and you watch every play because who knows what's going to happen. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they do it. And some people will just wait until things are declining to try and figure that out. That's, I think, where the error is going to be.
Yeah, I don't think we actually disagree on that at all. I think that there's trends, and I know that I've said this thing about trends quite a lot lately, that were already in place before the pandemic, that are just going to be accelerated by it. And that's not like a controversial thing. It's just sort of a historical aspect of any crisis, right? Trends that were already evident are accelerated. And I think that, like you said, some of the people who were already drawing well, look at somebody like, Pearl Jam, or you look at someone like Wilco, some of these bands and acts, maybe the Lakers, right? They're not gonna struggle necessarily because they were already had huge demand. But the people who are going to struggle are the ones who are already struggling, right? Like, so you're looking at tons of baseball teams and football teams and basketball teams. And to an extent, even hockey, right, where there was challenges, concerts. A lot of concerts were maybe selling 50% of their tickets. Those are going to be a challenge and a struggle. And so when you bring up the idea of it being like an experiential thing, I think that a lot of times, because and there's a question I'm going to pose here as opposed to a monologue, is a lot of times we make this assumption that you brought up, which is that I'm going to come no matter what, right? My bias is always to be out at events, always to be out doing things. But you have to put yourself in the position of the person who doesn't always go out, right? Like the average person maybe goes to one or two events a year, possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the exact number in front of me right now, but the thing is, it's like as soon as we're involved in this thing, right? Like I know that I am not the average customer, right? Because I can't be. As I work on this stuff, and I've worked on events and things like this since I was 20 years old, right? And so one of a few now, much longer than I like to admit most days. The thing is like, how do we adjust our mindset, right? And you may not have the answer to this because I certainly am always fighting this tendency to put ourselves in the position of thinking through the challenge of getting people off their couches, out of their seats, out of the bars to come to an event, because our inclination is to go, and their inclination is like they're just looking for the experience. So, what do you think from the point of view, from your point of view, that we can do to enhance this experience? Because the point you made with the Dolphins is great, and one thing I don't talk about a lot here, but I should probably a little more, is one time and back early, a long time ago, right? I'm an old timer now. Worked with Yellowtail on a project to help them go to 36 cities and throw 36 tailgate parties before football games, and and that created this huge experience. So now that I've monologued, from your point of view, how do you figure out a way to overcome that bias towards, well, this is what I want, to look at it through the eyes of somebody who may not be like you?
Yeah, so from a sports event perspective, stuff that you mentioned, tailgating, the pregame experience, the halftime experience, whatever that might be. I don't know what they can do or what they can't do, but when you go to the big games, the Super Bowls and the championship games, they have a concert at the halftime. Someone comes out and sings 2 or 3 songs. The pregame, there's all kinds of brands, and it's almost like if you take the festival experience and the big game experience and translate that to every day. Football is a little bit easier. Baseball, obviously, harder to do that because there's 81 home games so there's a challenge there. But in baseball, the Marlins have a virtual home run derby in there, and they have a band that plays, get the kids earlier there. Food. Think about food. The food that you offer at a game. I think baseball does the best job of offering something unique. Football, it's all, the same stuff, put hamburgers and hot dogs and chicken sandwiches. So if you can get the food and drinks to be, unique, people are going to want to come and go for that. That's my feeling. But again, I'm different like you. I'm going to go no matter what. But there are things the stuff that I mentioned that would make my experience better. It doesn't mean I'm not going to go if they don't have it. But then you got to find the people who are not like us, who might not go, but then they will go for that. And then pricing. I mean, look, the cost is always going to be a factor in these things. The parking these days is outrageous. Admission, yeah, you can get some admission is not necessarily that bad, but I think the food. So I think the cost is a big deal too. If you can lower the cost but sell more in volume, I think your revenue is not going to take a hit, and that's going to just give people a better feeling as they're there, not going to an event and dread having to pay $14 for a beer, which is insane.
At Matt's Park, it's $17 the last time I was there, so they don't undersell it. That part of it is absurd, and I believe that the teams whose pricing model has been like, look at the spreadsheet, how much can I squeeze out of somebody? It's going to be under an extreme amount of pressure, because I know, again, me and talking to the corporate buyers is one of the big reasons that people will pay attention to me, is because I know those people, because for a long time when I was selling tickets day to day, my client list was probably most of the Fortune 500, right? So I was dealing with these people all the time. So I know what their entertainment needs and desires are. I know exactly what they're trying to achieve with the thing. I know all of these things. And if those customers, is like flying business class, right? If that part of the business goes away, it's a challenge, because you've trained people over time that it's a special event, right? Like there's 81 baseball games most years. Not this year, obviously.
Maybe not next year either.
yeah, who knows, right? But 81 baseball games is really, really tough to make 81 baseball games a premium experience. You need people to buy in to the experience, the journey. I've described baseball as like a novel, right? You work through the early chapters in April and May. You get to the meat of the book in June and July. August and September are kind of like, driving you towards the conclusion. And then you have if you're in
the race, a whole nother challenge if your team is so far out of it, right?
Yeah, but the
and you don't have a marquee
that
player.
never holds up to me, because The problem is that have you ever watched minor league have you seen what minor league baseball does? Every summer I take my son to a Durham Bulls game, right? I don't care who the Durham Bulls are playing. I don't even know who's on the team. I just go because it's fun, right?
Yeah.
And I think that aspect has got to be returned to sports. It needs to be fun so that you can take your kid, right? My son's very disappointed because this year we won't get to go to a Durham Bulls game because we could barely leave our house in D.C. It's crazy. But all those things I think you bring up are very, very important. The experience really is going to be key to winning people back, and it's going to probably have to evolve because the trend that it was under was already going in a negative direction in a lot of places.
Yeah, if you look at the pricing, let's just get back to the cost of things. Don't try and squeeze every penny you can out of someone for a certain product, whatever that is. If you took the soda and beer and you lowered the price even half, I think you'd sell more than twice as much. That's my feeling. Now, the alcohol is a different story. You got to be careful with that because if it's too cheap, you're going to have a lot of other issues. But if I'm a family going to the game and I'm going to spend $100, and generally I think people are like that. They say, look, here's how much money I want to spend today. Would you rather them get 2 items for $100 or would you rather them get 5 items? If they're spending $100, they're spending $100. I don't know that you're going to get them to increase that. So it's almost like, hey, I know we're going to get this money from you. Let's try and get you as much much bang for the buck, as people say, for that. And then, if you can't afford to not operate at those huge margins, then that's a whole other issue. I think I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What?
How maybe some poor assumptions in your business model, right? Because if you can't afford to give people these things, because I know incremental costs pretty well, right? And I've talked about my history in nightclubs and, some of the great things I learned, about incremental costs working in nightclubs. It's that the variable cost between and the one I use all the time is gin. So between rot gut gin or a premium gin is about a penny or two on a scale, maybe. But the value that you can give, the perception of value that you can give that increases, can allow you to generate exponential revenue increases, right? So again, to use like the example I use probably far too regularly in a lot of cases is when I first started out in nightclubs, we had to figure out how to generate a quarter more from each guest that came through the door because that was our goal we set for ourselves. And so the question that we ended up coming up with was when people would ask us what kind of gin they want, like if somebody asked us for a gin and tonic, they work for vodka, soda, or whatever too, you would ask them, what kind of gin do you prefer? And that question alone drove about $500,000 in brand new revenue, brand new profit with very little associated costs. And that same idea should drive out over and over and over again, because then the thing is that you've created is an experience that's way, way better. So they feel better. You've made more money. And the truth is that you'll get the customer to come back because they're having a better time. But if you charge somebody $17 for a beer or, $45 for a T-shirt or something, the likelihood is that they're going to feel like, is it better to go to the bar or the restaurant or to get the premium package at home? I think those are real. Or actually, I don't think this. I know this because I talk to people all the time. This is a real consideration, right? They won't take their kids. They won't go 2 or 3 times a week, right, for baseball.
Especially the kids. I mean, you have the kids. They're always asking you to buy me something every time you're at the event, at the game. Can I have a shirt? Can I have a poster? Can I have, this thing? And it just adds up to it becomes unaffordable. Think all these other corporate events, and then now, you know more about this. The corporations are going to be like, well, we're not going to spend all this money on these tickets right now. So that's what they lean on. Here's the reality
of dealing with the corporations, right? And this is not me, reading into what they've talked about. This is a quote directly from several of them, is that we don't see the value of having a full season package any longer. We would prefer to just buy select games that we really, really need off the secondary market. That's a quote, and I've heard that from many, many sources. 3 or 4 directly from this. And it's true, because the thing is like you're trying to hold out this sort of exclusivity where it's, and charge people for something that's not exclusive, right? The corporate
I think I've never held a season
what they
ticket.
get.
I've never held a season ticket for anything. We've had packages, half the season or stuff like that. The only season ticket package I would ever buy would be for the Gators, in my eyes, because I'd go to every game if I could.
That's no good, because they're going to lose to Alabama every year anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but one other thing I wanted to ask you about is the guise of this coronavirus being the downfall of companies, whether it's in the sports world or if it's a restaurant. Is there not a good chance that company or organization or team or league was struggling anyway, and that's part of why it was? And if you can't float yourself for 6 months or 3 months, how likely is it that something else might come along in a year or two?
So the question you're asking me is about the stability of businesses and their ability to withstand shock. And I think that you have to look at a few things. One of them being, what's the system that that the businesses are operating in, and truthfully, they're working the way they're supposed to, right? There's been such easy access to credit. There has been indiscriminate spending due to that lack of credit. There has not, the change in the tax laws last year incentivized companies not to store cash for rainy days or stability. Instead, it incentivized them to buy back their stock or fund themselves, so they can inflate their stock prices. There's a bunch of things like that. So some of these challenges are predictable. But the thing about it is that any recession, any kind of crisis, you're likely to find that an organization is that was struggling is going to see that change and that struggle accelerate. So I think what you're seeing is some organizations that were looked successful on paper were heavily over-leveraged, were extremely unstable in their business processes, maybe hadn't spent the time and effort putting together solid processes, maybe weren't dealing so well with their customers. They didn't know their customers very well. All these things are going on, and I think that in a crisis, right, when people are making more thoughtful decisions on where they're investing their money or their attention or their time, these things are exposed. And I think that's what you're seeing, right? And I think that, so one of the things that with some of the corporate buyers that I've been talking to, right, I know a couple people that live near me, they have a bunch of tickets for different sports around D.C., and they were talking about first of all, the customer service level wasn't very great for our tickets. Number two, the responsiveness during the crisis has been pretty much abysmal. Number three, they've just auto renewed and rolled over the tickets for next year without even asking us. And you keep adding these things on, the decision becomes easy because you're not a partner, you're a vendor, and really what it feels like for a lot of these buyers is you're trying to pull things over on them. All of these things, they accelerate. So it just highlights where the challenges are, where the inconsistencies are, where there is a lack of process, a lack of thoughtfulness, a lack of strong leadership. And all of these things are just being laid bare, which I guess you asked me a question on my podcast. Did I answer that question?
Yeah. No, customer service is the downfall of a ton of businesses and ideas and organizations. I mean, a lot of it's the same. Like if I go to Target or Walmart, or if I go to CVS or Walgreens, I'm essentially buying the same product and roughly around the same price. So what draws me to one as opposed to the other? Distance, yeah, maybe price if it's significant enough, but it's how you feel being treated and and as a customer. And then the point you had too is being a partner. I have, you should treat certain people more like partners than customers. And, just you can't take for granted that they're always going to be a customer, because things change for a lot of different people. And
exactly
maybe
right.
the expenses too, like how much, when things were well, we were just spending willy nilly. And now we look at this and we're like, well, we can't be spending like this.
You couldn't have said it. I couldn't have said it better myself. Because I've had several of my partners call me and say, this is what we're going to do, and you tell us if you think this is right or wrong. And they would tell me, hey, look, we have these relationships with these companies or these people, and we could hold them to the contract. But the thing is like they're under so much pressure. Holding them to their contract could be the difference between somebody keeping their job or not keeping their job. The difference between them being our partner in 5 years or not being around in 5 years. And we feel like we're going to make the decision to give them some leeway to, not necessarily have to, pay the full, purchase all these tickets or pay the full freight on some of these things, because our view is that we want them to be our partner for the long term, and I think that's just, you kind of got to do, should be the thought process, right? But again, if you're going back to the idea of businesses not being able to sustain a shock to their system, a lot of it comes down to incentives to begin with, right? And the incentives were not to have a rainy day fund. They were not to treat customers like partners, but to treat them like transactions, right? All of these things are playing out. I don't know that anything changes on the other side of the pandemic, because strangely enough, a lot of times the new normal looks like the old normal. And we've seen that play out over and over and over again, throughout history. So, I don't know, but I would like to think that maybe at the end of this, whenever the end comes in the States, right, we have a much greater appreciation that people do business with other people. Because I think that really the business climate in the States has gotten incredibly harsh and transactional when, business is about people, and I,
it always has, it
if
always
I always
will.
do a great job. I mean, I try to do a great job of that, but I don't know that I always do the best job of that.
Well, it's all, I like to think that that's why what I have to offer is just being someone who's going to be compassionate and who's going to want to help. And it's not always about squeezing the extra dollar and doing what's right, even if it's not, the greater good is a big thing for me. And I look at that politically. I look at that throughout the whole world. I look at that through the eyes of my business. And I'm a fan. I'm a fan first. That's what I'll always be. So I'm always going to fight for the fan. Even when I worked for other people, I was a customer person. I want to fight for the customer, because ultimately they're the ones who are going to pay, buy me my food for the table for my family. Even though I'm getting paid specifically by the company, without the customers, I don't have an opportunity to make any money. So it'll be interesting to see. I feel that things are going to get back to as close to how they were eventually, with, obviously new things, new trends, new technology. But, my hope is that we'll be doing the things that we've been doing all along. And, whether that's a year from now or 2 years from now or 3 years from now, I'm looking forward to it whenever it is, because I'm itching for live sports and live music in person without having to worry about how far I'm standing from someone and listening to it on a radio. It's
oh yeah,
they're good alternatives, but it's not good.
I have there's so many great events that I had planned this year that were canceled.
What was the one you missed the most?
Matt, I can't tell you. Put my finger on one, but I will give you three, just for fun. I was going to go see Pearl Jam at at Hyde Park in London.
Oh,
I
wow.
was going to go see Pearl Jam at the Apollo in New York City. And I was going to see Red Sox opening day.
That would be great too.
But I was also going to go see Wilco and the National at Wolf Trap. There's like so many great things, that I was going to have planning on going to this year. Which brings me to like something you talk about a lot. And one thing I want to wrap the podcast up with two like sort of fun things, since we talked a lot about marketing and customer experience and getting people back in here. Now I want to have a little fun at your expense, or at least at my expense, because most of the time the joke needs to be on me, because that's like a speaker 101 thing. Everybody listening to speaker, always make the joke at yourself. But bucket list items, right? Tell me your two best events that you've ever been to, and then two things you really want to see. And if you want, I'll do the same thing.
Yeah, so the things I've been to. If you need me to
go first, I can do that for you.
I can give you a second. The two things that I've been to that have been bucket lists for me are national championship games in college and the College World Series. So I'm a huge Gator fan, so a lot of my bucket list is going to be about that. Other bucket lists that I haven't been to, stuff like the Masters would be a bucket list. Kentucky Derby, it usually falls around my birthday. And then I've been to a soccer match overseas. Olympics would be a bucket list, and then maybe just like a music festival out in Europe. Those are the things that are in the sports and entertainment business that are my bucket list.
Okay, so the couple things that I've been to that were that I still remember as being the greatest was I went to the bloody sock game. So Kurt Schilling against the Yankees with the bloody sock. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It was incredible.
No, I got it.
Game 6 of the AL championship. It was unbelievable, right? That was like one of the coolest things. My first big sporting event was unbelievable. It was the Colorado Notre Dame game in the Orange Bowl, where the touchdown got called back on the Rocket, I believe. But it was like that was like two things that were unbelievable, and I still remember them. And then the other thing, which I shared recently because it just passed us, was the greatest concert I've ever been was I saw Pearl Jam at Madison Square Garden on July 8, 2003. I always remember it because the floor shook, and it was one of only 4 times ever that the floor had shaken. And what was amazing about it was watching the video of it was that they didn't really even play any hits. There was it was all like deep cuts, almost the entire show. And the people were just so into it. It was so great. My buddy that I went to, we every year we text about it. Oh my God, you freaking remember this concert. It was amazing. Now, bucket list items. I have become a huge football fan, a European football fan. I really want to go to the Champions League final. I tried to make it happen last year because my club, Tottenham Hotspur, was in it. I couldn't make it work because of some business commitments, but that would be great. I'd also love to go to the World Cup. That goes along with that. And
not in Qatar though, Qatar, whatever.
No, it'd be fine. There's a story there for one of these days when we go out having a drink or something. But I'd love to go to the World Cup. I would love to go to the Champions League final, and I'd love to go to like the opening ceremonies of the Olympics because I've never had a chance to do that, and I think those would be great.
But one last thing I want to say about your bucket list, and it's really the crux of why Ticket Time Machine exists, is none of those things could have been expected that you went to. The stuff I went to, sure, it's expected. It's a national championship game. Of course it's going to be awesome, especially if you win. But even that said, the national championship tickets that I have don't even indicate that the Gators played on it. That's just the nature of the ticketing business. But all the events you did, you didn't even know going into it that was going to be, you thought it'd be a great event, but did you think it'd be like the best you've ever been to? No, there's things that are memorable about that event. And that's what, to me, sports and music are all about. It's like the memories. It's all about a memory. Look, you've been to a ton of Pearl Jam shows, and you'll go to a ton of them then, but that's something about that day, that show, that experience means something to you, and it's something that you'll never forget.
Oh, yeah, and there's other ones, too. It's like the year that Wilco played the Daughters of the American Revolution in D.C. on Super Bowl Sunday, and we went. That was one of the 3 best concerts I've ever been to. I still have the ticket stub somewhere from that. And who knew? So, like, I was just taking it because my Catherine, my partner, she could care less about the Super Bowl. So I was like, well, I care less about the Super Bowl myself, except for the fact that everybody watches it and expects you to watch it. But I was like, well, I'd much rather go see Wilco. And it was a fantastic concert. It was unbelievable. I had unbelievable, great seats, the whole thing. And who would have known? I wouldn't have expected it. It was unbelievable. That's right. And so I think that having those souvenirs, it helps. It deepens that connection. I think it's super, super powerful. And I agree with you about the physical ticket. There's plenty of room for digital tickets. There's plenty of room to collect data. There's plenty of room. There's opportunity for all kinds of stuff. As far as the data goes and collecting information from people, I still think one of the most powerful ways that you can get people to share their data with you and tell you what they want and what they desire is to ask them. And a lot of times we just fail to ask people.
No, that's a great point. They're just pushing it on you. They're getting your information. Yeah. They're just pushing it on you. I scroll through Facebook and whatever I've just talked about or searched is now appearing in there. Yeah. It's a great point.
Distrust. Yeah, it brings up distrust of advertising. It drives down advertising effectiveness. It gives you this false impression of last click attribution, which makes you believe that brand building and storytelling aren't as important as they truly are. I mean, there's all these things.
Yeah, I don't think they can track it the way they think you can. I mean, if I have something in my hand and I show it to 100 people, you're not going to be able to track that I talked about this thing that I got at the concert or the sporting event, or I bring it to the next tailgate and they're like, oh, where'd you get that? Well, I got it from this event that I went to, or I bought it from this brand. But there's no way to track. So whatever numbers they're telling you that we can provide it's a guess, really. I mean, it's an educated guess, but there's more value to stuff that you can't track.
The ills or the benefits and the ills of digital marketing is a whole podcast all its own.
Yeah.
But I want to wrap this up by asking you one thing, because this has become an ongoing text chain between me, you, and my co-host on the happy hour that we do on Fridays, Ken True. What are you going to grill today?
Well, today nothing, but Friday is when we do the grilling and the slow cooker. And on my menu that I'm looking at right now, we got short ribs for Friday.
And when will mine be here?
Well, you got to come here. If you could brave, I don't know which is worse, D.C. or Florida, but if you drive down here.
Having lived both places, I'm going to tell you, I think it's D.C. It's hotter. It's so crazy hot here.
Is it? I'll meet you halfway. How about that?
That would be even probably worse, because then you're talking about Georgia, and that's even hotter. I got to go north for the summer. Matt, where can I point people to find you on the internet, man?
Yeah, so tickettimemachine.com is the website. We're actually, I think this week or next, is going to have a new rebirth of the website. On Twitter, I'm pretty active on Twitter. You can just click Ticket Time Machine, Instagram as well, and then me personally, LinkedIn. Jesse Cole of the Savannah Bananas gave something that I truly believe in. He's the CEO and the owner. Always be accessible. I'm probably the most accessible person you'll ever meet. My phone number, my email is there. It's all over the place. So if you want to get in touch with me, I respond to every email, message, DM. I can be found everywhere: LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TicketTimeMachine.com. Happy to talk to anyone who needs it.
All right, awesome. Hey, Matt, thank you so much for doing the podcast, man.
No, this has been great. I appreciate it, Dave.
There it was, my conversation with Matt Wolff from Ticket Time Machine. You let me know what you thought by sending me an email. It is my name, Dave, at davewakeman.com. Make sure that you check out my website. It's davewakeman.com. You'll find all kinds of stuff I'm up to. There's a blog there. There's I post events or calendar stuff. I'm in the process of updating it, but it's a home for all kinds of either great stuff or crazy stuff. You choose. Make sure you check out my friends at bookingprotect.com. There's some great content going up about reinvention, customer service, building and rebuilding relationships. If this pandemic has proved anything, it is that relationships count. Thinking about things in advance is very, very important, and making sure that you stay connected to your audience is great. So there's some really great content there, and if you are thinking through the process of refund protection, there is no better partner in the world than Booking Protect. I can say that for certain. Make sure you check out the We Will Recover initiative. It is put together by the folks at Audience or Activity Stream, not Audience View, but Audience View is a partner. They are somebody who contributes some content to this website. It's folks from all over the world. I think every continent now. It's a great collection of people and ideas. Classes, blogs, all kinds of great stuff. It's at wewillrecover.live. Check it out. It's a great idea, full of things that'll help hopefully get people back on their feet faster and more effectively. Make sure, if you don't already, get the Talking Tickets newsletter. You can get it by visiting my website. That's davewakeman.com. There's a newsletter link there. Click on that. You'll save two newsletters. There's one for Talking Tickets. There's another one for the Business of Value. Make sure you sign up. Every Friday, I send you 5 stories with some analysis, some action items. Some weeks during the pandemic, it's been very tough. Some weeks I've cracked jokes. People don't like the cracking jokes so much, but that's okay. It's my newsletter. It's free. You get what you pay for. Make sure you check it out. I have been doing a survey this week in the newsletter, on social media, through all the little different channels I have about what people are thinking, what they're dealing with, what's the best way for people to learn, what are some of the ideas they're looking for, what are some of the surprising lessons they've learned, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And I will put a link to that in this week's Talking Tickets and in any blog posts associated with this, and I will pump it out on social media. But I've really learned some really great things about folks so far. So thank you for helping me out with that. Check out Matt. Let me know if you need to talk to somebody. If you just want to talk and just blow off steam, you want to crack some jokes. Every Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time here in the U.S., I host a happy hour on the Google Meet with my friend Ken Troop. Come there, we crack jokes and we laugh at each other. Most of the time it's me and Ken making fun of each other, which is totally appropriate. But if you're feeling like you're a little stuck or struggling through this period of time, I'm here for you. Right? One of the nice things about doing this podcast and all the things I do is I have the ability to talk to people from all over the world, which helps me not feel so isolated or alone or just struggling, because then I have a chance to talk to people. The same way people do that for me, I want to do that for you. If you need somebody to talk to, or if you're having you want to bounce an idea off of somebody, just send me an email. It's dave@davewakeman.com. You can text me. My phone number is with the country code +1 917 705 6301. You can connect me on WhatsApp or whatever. You can find me on all the social medias. Just let me know. I know from personal experience dealing with other crises like the financial crisis, or just like periods where things have been a little bit of a struggle, that it's not always easy to talk to somebody, or you don't know who to talk to or what to talk about. However I can help. I guess that's it. As always, I do want to thank you for being here. I don't know if I'll get any more episodes up before the end of July. Having the chance to put some episodes out in July and have great conversations with folks like Martin Hay and Nikki Purcell, Matt today, Pierre Ether. It was really great. It helped me get my head right. It helped me feel like I was on a positive, moving forward trajectory again. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate you being here, and I will talk to you soon, and sooner rather than later even. So take it easy.